What's up, everyone? Aaron Negler here with your Packers Daily Chat at Cheesehead TV's YouTube channel and on Facebook. We're going everywhere today. What the heck? Hope you're all doing well on this fine Thursday afternoon. As you can see from the title of this chat, playoffs is going to be a theme until the Packers win a few games. I am sick and tired of all this playoff talk. Let's win a game. Let's see them win a football game. I would love to see that. Obviously, they're back in the friendly confines of Lambeau Field on Sunday afternoon, facing off against one of the worst teams in the league. 14-point favorites. If they can't win this one, burn it all down. Hello, everybody in the comments section. Good to see you. How are you, Tim? I'm all right. Thanks for asking. Aaron Jones is a key to this game. The Cardinals, I believe, are ranked 30th against the run. Just tell you all you need to know about how they should approach this football game. Hey, Aaron, Sunday will be my first game at Lambeau. Any advice? Mark, get there bright and early. Those noon kickoffs, they sneak up on you quick, so don't go too hard on Friday night or Saturday night. Get there early Sunday morning and soak it all in. Get to Kroll's, get a Butterburger. Go to Lot 1. That's where the party is. And just get there, man. Get there early. Enjoy it all. Soak it all in. Tons of great stuff. Tons of great people and vibe around the stadium. What are the Negler odds that the Packers lose to the Cardinals? John, I think they will destroy the Cardinals. But if they were to lose, I would not be surprised because that's just the type of team the 2018 Packers are. Eric with the Packers suck. Lose out and get a better pick. Eric, you must be fun at parties. 9 a.m. old fashions. Adam, that's what you're talking about. That's what I'm talking about. That's what Corey Banke is all about. Actually, he hates it, but, he hates making them, but he likes drinking them. Howdy, Mr. Negler. Well, hello. Thanks for joining us today. We'd rather talk about potential new head coaches. Julia, it's a little early for that, although, Freddie Kitchens today was on fire with the Cleveland media. The job he's done turning around that offense and with Baker Mayfield, Kitchens for Green Bay head coach. That's what I'm talking about. Who has more potential, Kevin King or Josh Jackson? I would say Kevin King if he can ever stay on the field. I think Josh is going to be a good corner in the league. He's obviously taken his lumps as a rookie. I still think he's got a lot of ball game ahead of him. But I think Kevin King is probably the better prospect if he can stay on the field. Thoughts on the SI article? Yeah, I have lots of unnamed sources in there. Lots of people with, or people familiar with the thinking of, which is always dubious, like who is that? I will say, though, there were a few anonymous quotes in there that I know who they were because I've heard those exact quotes from those people in certain conversations that I've had over the course of the last 6 months. So it was funny to watch certain things get leaned on and talked about and other things kind of not addressed. But overall, I think it paints the kind of picture we've expected behind the scenes when it comes to the frustrations, especially the crux of the issue being the disconnect between Mike McCarthy and his quarterback. I thought the quote from someone close to Rodgers saying that Aaron would not be upset about that article coming out was very telling. But at the end of the day, it is all anon quotes. It's hardly anybody. I think the only real on-the-record quote they got was from Joe Callahan and maybe Tim Boyle. But so you got to take it all with a bit of a grain of salt, obviously. But I think we've seen a lot of that stuff kind of festering on the surface. Maybe none of it really will explode into the public light, but certainly where there's smoke, there is fire. What is a bigger need, tackle or guard? Good question. Probably tackle, Allison, just because it's the more important position. I think they need both, though. I don't think I'll be very surprised if Brian Bulaga is back next year. They're going to need a tackle and at least one guard. That right side of the line especially, but the guard play in particular has been spotty, has caused a lot of problems throughout the season. I thought Corey actually made a great point on Transplants last night. If you missed it, make sure you go back and watch it. He talked about how the offensive line has kind of been the root of everything. And there are certainly other issues, whether it's Rodgers, third and short, etc., McCarthy, play call and design, all of that. But heck, your offensive line is supposed to be your engine on offense, and there have definitely been issues up front. And it's not something that has gotten talked about a lot or been really dissected in the media very much. but they're having issues there. Both guards are having problems in pass pro. Brian Bulaga has definitely taken a step back. Pretty much the stalwarts have been David Bakhtiari and Corey Linsley. Linsley in particular, I think, is having an outstanding year. But yeah, that's been a major issue, and I think it will continue to be so for the rest of the season. So if Bakhtiari doesn't play, who stops Chandler Jones? Jason Spriggs and prayer, essentially. I'm sure they would give Spriggs tons of help, or as much help as Mike McCarthy ever gives anyone. But yeah, it does sound promising as far as Bakhtiari goes. He was bumped up from a did not participate yesterday to a limited participant on the injury report this afternoon. And by all accounts, from those that were in attendance, he did a lot of work, a lot of drill work, and some of the team stuff during practice today. So that's encouraging as far as signs for Sunday. Thoughts on moving Josh Jones to middle linebacker in the offseason? I mean, they've done a little bit of that. They've played him up front and kind of had him roaming a little bit towards near the line of scrimmage. I don't know if he holds up as a true middle linebacker, though, or an inside linebacker, simply because I don't think he's very good when it comes to flipping his hips and running downfield in coverage, something you'd be asked to do a lot at that position. I think we've seen his strength is being near the line of scrimmage in that strong safety role and coming downhill after ball carriers and quarterbacks. You saw plenty of examples on Sunday night where if you get him in space against a shifty ball carrier, you're in a bit of trouble. And I think he would find himself in that position quite a bit as an inside linebacker. Should Packers keep the old coach? Dan, I went on record Sunday night. I'm done. I'm over. I mean, I think McCarthy is a really good football coach. I don't think you just lose that. I think his message and everything between him and Rodgers has gotten really stale in Green Bay. It's pretty much broken at this point. And barring some kind of miracle adjustment on offense, to their approach on offense, which I don't ever see happening, I just think it's time to move on. Much like it was when Andy Reid's time ran out in Philadelphia, I think that's where Mike McCarthy is in Green Bay. And that doesn't mean I'm casting aspersions on Mike. Like I said, I do think he can go someplace else, start over, and build a really successful program wherever that might be. But in Green Bay, whatever he was going to do, he's done it. Do you think Tramon Williams makes the cut next year? It's a good question, especially with some of the young talent that they've not only acquired, but seen a limited potential from guys like Brown, Jackson, etc., who are getting more and more playing time as the year wears on. Yeah, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. Do I think it's a foregone conclusion? No, but it's definitely on the table. And I'll have you note that Corey Banke just poked his head around the glass as soon as that Tramon Williams question came up. Always monitoring his boy, Tramon Williams. Rodgers isn't eating enough dairy and cheese curds. Well, he did cut out the old dairy from the diet, so who knows. McCarthy goes to the Bengals. Can you imagine, Rob? That'd be crazy. In what ways has Pettine been better than Capers? I think he's kept things a little bit more cohesive in the back end, especially with all the injuries. They were playing 3 rookies at corner last Sunday night, and for the most part, I thought they held up pretty well. Obviously, there were times when the Vikings were able to move the ball, but in the days of Dom Capers, that probably would have been a 45 to 50-point game. I think he's done a really good job of generating pressure. They are amongst the league leaders in sacks, and that's without a true edge guy. I know Kyler Fackrell has come to the fore as of late, kind of disappeared on Sunday night, but he's got free rushers after the quarterback. He does a really good job generating pressure without much talent on the edge in a way that, frankly, Capers never could, especially getting guys free who can get after the quarterback and, if not sack the quarterback, at least pressure him, alter his mechanics, throw, etc. I think those are the things that kind of jump out at you initially. Then past that, I think he's done a lot of really good work in developing a lot of these young guys. That's something that seemed to have fallen away under Capers his last couple of years. Belichick already looking for Thielen. Nice. Can we re-sign Clay Matthews and move him to inside linebacker? Megan, I think I get this question pretty much every chat, and I agree. I think it's a really good idea. 2 things have to happen, though. One, I mean, Mike Pettine has to stick around. That's no foregone conclusion with Mike McCarthy's kind of future hanging in the air. Who knows if Pettine's even the defensive coordinator next year? Who knows if they're even running a 3-4? And then secondly, they got to work out the financials. Clay is on the last year of his deal. If they did want to bring him back, which maybe they do, to do exactly what you're suggesting, they got to make it work financially. And I don't know if Clay is going to want to get one last big bite at the apple, Because if that's the case, there's no way that's happening in Green Bay, especially on a third contract. That just does not happen with the Packers. So if he is willing to take way below market value to come do that, sure, but I would have a hard time betting on it. Let's head over to Twitter, see what's on the old tweet machine as people want to send tweets our way. Matthew starts us with, I'm curious about your thoughts on this. Do you think Packers winning the Super Bowl with 15 players on injured reserve makes them downplay the continuous injury problems this team has every season, it seems? They think if we did it once, we can do it again. I don't know, Matthew. Maybe it moved Ted Thompson's thinking a little bit. The way that the coaching staff was able to coach people up and bring them in. And I know Mike McCarthy, while he would never say it publicly, has expressed frustration often behind the scenes and, to various media outlets about his frustrations of not having had veteran players come in via free agency throughout the years to kind of supplement the injury issues. I don't think as an organization, though, that's been something that they've latched onto or has moved their thinking as a whole. I don't think Mark Murphy is saying, yeah, that's, we won it with 15 guys on IR. We don't need to worry about injuries. I don't think that's the case at all, because I know they've done a lot as far as trying to prevent injuries and trying to change their routines in certain areas to try and fix the injury problem, so to speak. But look, it's football. Everybody's hurt all the time. I know Packer fans get all upset when I say this, but all you got to do is look at the injury report this week. The Cardinals and the Packers are in a race to see who can have the most on the injury report. Everybody's injured all the time. It's the NFL. It's football. That's the gig. If the Packers go in another direction at head coach in the offseason, do you think they'd go with an offensive-minded coach, which is all the rage these days, or look at someone who is defensive-oriented? Well, Solomon, it's interesting because they've kept on the offensive train for a good number of years now. Obviously, it was Mike Holmgren, then they went to Ray Rhodes for a year, and then Wolf obviously saw the error of his ways there and went to Sherman. And then they went to, McCarthy. And that's been offense with a little one-year defensive detour. And a lot of that is driven by the quarterback. They want to have someone who can make that quarterback go. It's the face of the franchise. They've invested so much money in the guy. I tend to think for those reasons they will stick on the offensive side of the ball. But you never really know. A lot of times around the league, this hasn't happened in Green Bay, obviously, but a lot of times teams react to that last coach. So if you did have an offensive guy, you go and you try and get a defensive guy just to change the mentality. Maybe they go that route. I think a lot of it will come down to the individual interviews. And ultimately, it's Mark Murphy and what he wants and what he thinks. I mean, who knows where he's leaning as far as the kind of coach he wants, the kind of vibe he wants from that coach, etc. Maybe he wants a defensive-minded coach. Maybe, as a former defender himself, maybe he wants a little more toughness on the field, so to speak. That doesn't necessarily have to come from a defensive guy, but maybe that's the thinking. Who knows? It's an interesting question, and I'm going to be monitoring closely who they interview and how many on each side get to talk if they do indeed move on from McCarthy. Rodgers has shaved his beard and kept a mustache. I'm wondering if this is a way to start over and beginning of a winning streak. No. How many years has Cheesehead TV existed? And how many years has Packers Daily been a thing? I'm really late to the party, sorry, but you got me hooked. Well, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Cheesehead TV has been around since 2007. Packers Daily started this season, although it kind of started before last season when I was with the Gannett doing my Facebook Lives, but ultimately Packers Daily, the Packers Daily chat, started this season. Thank you for joining us, and thanks for finding us. Tell your friends, subscribe, share, all that nonsense. MMQB put out an article about the state of the Packers. What are your thoughts on it? I talked about that earlier in the stream. Come on back here to the live chat. I mean, the Sports Illustrated article, whole lot of anonymous sourcing, which means you always have to take it with a grain of salt. Let's see. Should Pack go with a West Coast offense or bring in a different system? Well, Dan, I think the strict adherence to the West Coast offense is definitely not the way to go. I think the best thing to do is to find, probably a young offensive mind who's been exposed to a lot of different ideas, who is able to draw from a lot of different systems. Well, we saw how successful the Eagles were with that approach last year. Obviously, they've struggled somewhat this season, although some of that has been due to injury. Some of that has been due to loss of kind of a bit of a brain drain on the offensive side of the ball, but I do think that is the way to go. We'll see. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to be the head coach. It could be just a head coach who hires an offensive coordinator of that ilk. But a strict West Coast offense, I don't think is a good idea. Is Breland on the team next year? Good question, Travis. I would suspect so, but who knows? A lot of ball game left there. Jeff Tedford for QB coach. I miss Rodgers holding the ball over his head. No. Stymie says, Peter King is a tool, MMQB is worthless. What's worthless, Stymie, is your assessment of Peter King. Since he doesn't work at MMQB anymore, he's at NBC. Keep up with the times. Don't be old and stupid. How about that? Everyone always talks about the West Coast offense, but what exactly does that mean? What does it mean, asked Caesar. Well, it's the system, famously made famous by Bill Walsh with Joe Montana and company, although it was around way before then. But that's what really brought it to the fore. So many people have kind of walked in those footsteps. That's the tree that Holmgren comes from. It's the tree Andy Reid comes from. It's the tree Mike McCarthy comes from. Although, obviously, Andy Reid and Mike McCarthy have gone very different ways. McCarthy has brought over a lot of kind of the Air Coryell stuff into his version of the West Coast offense, while Reid has gone to college, even to high school, and brought a ton of different kind of concepts into his offense there in Kansas City. But the West Coast, kind of the pure West Coast, go back and watch Holmgren's early Packers teams and old 49ers film, and that with Montana, and that you'll see true West Coast offense. Quentin Rollins was a huge bust. Breaking news from Rob. It means throw the check down. Not necessarily. I often Google for huge busts. Oh, it's been a long day. Do you think Kevin King is a bust? No, I don't. I think he's been hurt. I think he needs to stay on the field. But it's only his second year. Traditionally, you want to wait 3 years to judge a draft class. I don't think draft prospects are any different. When he's on the field, he's very effective, but he's got to stay on the field. If he can't, then probably next year, if he continues to go down this path where he's only available for less than 8 games a year, then I think we can start talking about him being a bust. But right now, it's way too early. I wish Jonathan Franklin never got injured. I hear you, Rob. Raji and Lacey can be our new right side of our line. All right. A lot of jokes here. A lot of jokes. Let's go. Hello from Tokyo. Rodgers is scared of the rush. Why? Offensive line weakness. Why? They let Lang and Sitton go, and they didn't invest through the draft. Who's at fault? Personnel team? Steve, there's a lot there. Let me unpack it a little bit. I talked about the loss of Lang and Sitton last night on Transplants. Make sure you check that out because Corey made a great point about the offensive line. Agreed with what you're saying here as far as the blame lying on the personnel side. They have made some investment along the offensive line. They did find Lindsley, They did find Taylor as an undrafted guy. They did find Bakhtiari in the later rounds. But, I don't think they really expected the step back from Balaga that they've gotten. And they went out and got Bell when they let Evans walk, which I think was a mistake in favor of Bell. I understand why they liked Bell. They brought him in the year before and they tried to sign him, but he ended up going down to Dallas. I think they liked his versatility. With Evans, he can only play guard, whereas Bell has experience both at guard and at tackle. Now, he's a disaster at tackle, and I don't think that should make anybody sleep better in the Packers personnel group, but that seems to be their thinking. So I think that was a mistake, bypassing Evans, bringing him back in favor of Bell. That never made sense to me, and I think we've seen it play out again and again this year. Now, that said, I also think Bell has done some good things, especially in the run game, helping keep the place cohesive, etc. But I don't see a humongous difference in his tape, what he's putting on tape, comparative to, say, what McCray was putting on tape before he got injured. But that's all water under the bridge at this point. Your main point about Rodgers looking at the rush is dead on. It is a big problem. How much did the QB coach change affect Rodgers? Katie, only Aaron Rodgers can really answer that question, but you have to think it played, into his, I'm going to say middling play because he's been good. He just hasn't been great. And I think there's no doubt that, he was very close to Van Pelt. That's no secret. And there has to be a bit of a residual effect. But I think they're both professionals and, they both are looking at the tape and going over things, adjustments, etc. They meet throughout the week the way you would with any other QB coach. So I do think there's a bit of a residual effect, maybe about his demeanor and how he feels about coming to work every day. But as far as like how he's taken a step back on the field being a direct result of that, I don't really buy that one. Will Rodgers ever give up the improv to follow a good play design, or is it just in his DNA? He will when he gets a coach that demands it. Right now, he doesn't have that. Do you think family issues have been a problem for Aaron this year? I don't know. I don't care. I've got family issues. I don't try to let them affect my job. Sometimes they do. But you know what? It's absolutely nobody's business. I have never, ever, ever, ever written about Rodgers' family, spoken about Rodgers' family, used it for any kind of content. This is the only time I'm going to mention it because I was asked in a live chat, but it's nobody's business, and I don't care, and neither should anyone else. We need a team of Alexanders. David, I couldn't agree more. His energy, his vibe, his ability, everything about it, his just kind of eating up everything on the field and getting in guys' faces and everything about Alexander. You got to love it. And it's a rookie, too. You know, you think, wow, if they can just get this guy and watch him develop. I mean, I think they got a really good player there. It's exciting. You got to love what they have in store there in the future. Earl Thomas to the Packers in 2019. I don't know, Stanley. I guess it depends on his health, but I'd be surprised if they made that kind of expenditure on the defensive side of the ball for a coming off an injury elder safety. But he was very good, no doubt about that. But we'll see. I would think he probably ends up in Dallas anyway. Word. All right, everybody. I'm going to jump. Thank you so much for all the questions. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to yours. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share us on Facebook. Like us there as well. And if you are interested in supporting what we do here at Cheesehead TV, make sure you go to our Patreon page, Cheesehead TV on Patreon. $5 a month makes you a patron, and then you get entered in. Become a winner of the chance to pick a t-shirt that we have to get rid of. We got a ton of overstock. We got to get rid of it. $5 a month. It supports this daily, supports Packer Transplants, supports the watch party. Tons of content for you. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a great night.